everyone, and welcome to this morning's 79th District legislative debate between Democrat Richard Flarend and Republican John McGinnis. Today's event is hosted by the Legislative Action Committee of the Blair County Chamber of Commerce. I'm Donna Gordy, a member of that committee, and I will serve as the debate moderator. The Chamber would like to acknowledge Haas's Steak and Sea House and Reliance Bank as today's corporate sponsors. Our format. The debate format began with a coin toss that took place between the candidates a few minutes ago. The result of that coin toss has designated candidate John McGinnis to go first with providing an opening statement. The candidates will then alternate answering first for the remainder of the debate. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer each question. They will have 3 minutes to do so, and then an additional 1 minute each for rebuttal. Joe Hurd, president of the Blair County Chamber, will serve as our timekeeper. He will be giving the candidates a 30-second warning to wrap up. All questions asked today have been submitted by members of the Legislative Action Committee. The candidates have been made aware of the issues that will serve as the basis for the questions, but have not been provided the actual questions in advance. There will be no questions from the audience, and we ask the audience not to react either positively or negatively to the candidates' responses. So, we will begin with a 3-minute opening statement from candidate John McGinnis.
My thanks to the Chamber and its supporters, as well as all of you here today and all of you who will be watching on the Access Channel. I'd also like to thank my opponent for showing up today. This is my second Chamber debate, and the first was kind of a lonely experience. Not that sharing the stage with Commissioner Gordy wasn't an honor, but it just seems a whole lot better in a debate to have at least 2 people besides the moderator. Reality, reform, renaissance. 261 days ago, I started my campaign for state representative with those 3 words: reality, reform, renaissance. The reality is grim. The government of our proud city of Altoona is in financial distress, and the government of the Keystone State is in even worse shape. State Senator Eichelberger, with others, has highlighted the imperative for significant and immediate action with his attention to the 4-alarm fire facing state finances. These include unsustainable welfare spending, ever-increasing prison costs, a monumental public pension problem, and an extraordinary increase in state debt. To give you an idea of how out of control the spending is at the state level, let me point out to you that after you adjust for inflation, the United States government spent $9,000 per person in 1945 fighting a world war in 2 theaters of operation against Hitler, Mussolini, and Tojo, with the fate of civilization on the line. $9,000. $10,000 per person today is what our state and local governments are spending in Pennsylvania. And on top of that, the federal government is spending $13,000 per person today, 50% more than it did at the height of World War II. Folks, government spending is out of control at all levels, and moderation now is nothing but code for surrender to socialism. Reform. The state spending problem is a Harrisburg phenomenon that stems from the status quo of career politicians. Careerism to cronyism to corruption is the straight line I've warned about since my campaign began. I am pledged to refuse unconstitutional practices of automatic pay raises and pensions for elected office. I am pledged to serve no more than 3 terms and will push term limits for all, and I will not take any per diems. Renaissance. When you have a representative who stands for life and liberty, who understands economics, and who's committed to supporting a free enterprise revival in Pennsylvania by tearing down the walls, keeping people, capital, and businesses out of our state, you can expect a new direction in Harrisburg, leading to a renaissance for our state, our city, and our district.
Thank you. We will now have a 3-minute opening statement from Richard Flarend.
Hello, thank you, Donna, Joe, and the rest of the Blair Chamber for welcoming us to this event. I'm running for state representative because I think that we need a pro-life, common sense representative who will work for compromise that will support the entire community. not someone who will push some agenda that only serve a few. I will support good ideas, whether they come from Democrats or from Republicans, and I will work for compromise to benefit our entire community. I've been the only person in the room to say no before when ideas aren't so great, and I'm not afraid to do that even to my own caucus. That needs to happen in Harrisburg a lot more. And of course, I'll support the good ideas, whether they come from Democrats or Republicans, that will benefit our community. I've been married for 15 years, and I'm the proud father of 2 children. I teach physics and energy at Penn State Altoona. I also own a small company, Groundhog Solar, which also happens to be a member of the Blair Chamber. And if that wasn't even enough, I've also been a volunteer in many aspects of our community. I've been a volunteer in nearly every single school in this district, both public and private, as well as schools that are outside the district and outside the county. I've been instrumental in turning around the Quaint Corner Children's Museum. And I've also been a neighborhood advocate before the City Planning and Zoning Commission to help protect our neighborhoods. In the General Assembly, that's going to be the same story. I will be there representing Altoona, and as always, I'll be here involved in our community, supporting our community. My door will be open to all leaders in our community to come, tell me what you need, and I will make sure that I will work for that in Harrisburg. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for the questions. Our first one will be answered first by Richard Flarend. The business community in Pennsylvania has long insisted that business retention and recruitment of new business has been especially difficult due to the Commonwealth's lack of a designation as a right-to-work state. Do you agree that such a designation is essential? If so, what would you like to see the legislature do to address the situation? If not, what alternative strategy do you see to attracting and retaining business in Pennsylvania? Richard?
No, I do not believe that right to work is fundamental to retaining business. In fact, I think it's completely overblown. I'm an ardent supporter of labor unions. I do not shy away from that, both public and private unions. As Franklin D. Roosevelt said, the liberty of a democracy is not safe if the people tolerate the growth of private power to the point where it becomes stronger than the democratic state itself. We need unions to provide this basic check on private corporate power. Unlike in the last decade, we need wages and benefits to keep pace with inflation. This doesn't help. This doesn't happen in the absence of unions. We need to return to a world where a working family can live and provide for themselves without having to choose between paying the electric bill or buying food. Unions represent the common interest of all workers. Businesses have trade associations like this Blair Chamber. Also, they have trade associations in their own specialties. As a business owner, I'm proud to be a member of the Blair Chamber, and essentially, I'm a member of a business union. The Blair Chamber works to support the interest of businesses, just the same way that a labor union works to support the interest of laborers. Workers deserve those same rights as businesses. What so-called right-to-work states really have is the right to freeload, where workers can basically get benefits and salary without actually having to pay for their fair share of negotiating for those benefits. And unions do a great job of not only raising the salary and benefits for those working in the union, but also for those working outside of the union. Realize that only 15% of the jobs in Pennsylvania are actually unionized. The remaining 85% are not. And so how can this be the main driving force of companies in Pennsylvania when it only affects 15% of the companies in the first place? So after all, let's see, in Pennsylvania or in right-to-work states, there's a $7,000 higher household income compared to right-to-work states. That $7,000 per household leads to increased things, increased goods and services that you can buy. Sometimes it's the extra toys that you want to buy. So that means that you can go out and buy an extra gun, an ATV, a fishing boat, or a plasma TV, whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe it's going out to bowl and go see a movie. But that extra $7,000 per household is what we actually need to drive our economy. In the business world, we have $22,000 in extra gross state revenues per household in businesses in union states versus right-to-work states. So all things being equal, not only are families making more money, but businesses are also making more money and are more profitable. We need working families who can afford to buy the products they make, and they need more disposable income. And when that happens, they buy more stuff, and that is what drives our economy. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
It is always production that drives an economy, not the ability of people to desire things, because people are born with unlimited desires. That's the first lesson of economics. I resent any reference to somebody as a freeloader because they choose to stand on their 2 feet. And right to work is not against unions. Mr. Flarend is absolutely right. The worker's entitled to everything a business is with a trade association, and the first right that a business has is to join the association or not join the association. If we look at the economic research, such as that done by Robert Reed in the Journal of Labor Research, he says he has examined the wage effects of right to work using state-level data. Right to work states have average wages that are significantly higher than non-right to work states. The reason for that is they have significantly lower cost of living. It's not a matter of what the wage is, it's what it will purchase, is what matters. With right to work, you would get a costless economic renaissance here in Pennsylvania. It's costless because it's simply an act of legislation to allow people to be free. And then the unions would have to be more vigilant in their support of their workers, their constituency. If there's any freeloading going on, it's an association that gets the government behind them to force its members to join or to force non-members to support it. That's what freeloading is all about. Now, the signature study on right to work is done by Vedder, Denhart, and Rowe. Right to work attracts capital and labors to a state. Its absent repels them. Compare Virginia with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Since 1977, Virginia has 82% more jobs, Pennsylvania just 24%. Pennsylvania has had a net migration loss of 40,000 people in the last decade. 1,500 people per day are leaving union states, compulsory union states, to move to right-to-work states. When it comes, again, back to the workers' point of view, and that's all I'm standing for here. Forget the economics for a moment. Let's just look at this morally. Why should a worker be compelled to join any association as a condition for employment? It's their choice. If the union has benefits to offer, the worker is free to join, and I stand four square behind that choice. But if the worker chooses not to, this is America, you're entitled to not join associations, and certainly shouldn't be forced as a matter of employment. When it comes to wages in right-to-work states, they have more purchasing power, they grow faster, and they're easier to come by because the job growth is much larger. That's a trifecta we don't want to pass on here in Pennsylvania.
Thank you. 1 minute rebuttal, Richard.
Sure. Job growth is often the wrong thing to actually look at. If you have 0 people employed and all of a sudden you have 1 new job that's created, that's actually an infinitely large job growth. That's not a good picture. If you have 99 people who are employed out of 100, and then all of a sudden 1 more person becomes employed, that's only a 1% job growth. But yet I know which of those 2 states I want to live in. I want to live in the state that had 100 people, well, 99 to 100 people employed, versus the other state that only had 0 to 1 person employed out of 100. So job growth disguises the whole picture. So we need to talk about how many people are actually employed and what the unemployment rate is. My opponent talked about Virginia. Of course, Virginia is heavy into defense, and so I don't know that comparing Pennsylvania to Virginia is a really great idea. We can go 1 step further south and compare Pennsylvania to North Carolina, which is also a right-to-work state. But it turns out that North Carolina, we started off with about the same unemployment rates about 4 years ago. After the recession, through the recession, and to current date, though, they lost more jobs, and now we have a lower unemployment rate than they have in North Carolina.
Thank you. John?
Would agree that one has to be careful as an economic matter when you look at statistics. But let's look at people. They're disappearing from Pennsylvania. We have a demographic that is unbalanced. We have plenty of senior citizens, but the young people are leaving. And in fact, the more educated a young person is, the more likely they are to leave Pennsylvania. Why is that? Because our economy is not good. And why is our economy not good? Because we do not embrace freedom. And on this issue, and there are several others I'm going to address in the next hour or so, on this issue, we need to move away from the socialist status quo and move towards a capitalist free enterprise system.